Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we are doing another rambling video. As always, the first video of the month after the TBR is the monthly ramble. So today we are going to talk about languages and why I decided to read or to start collecting manga in Spanish. Now, I'm not treating them as separate collections, like my manga in Spanish and my manga in English are all my manga collection. However, there are some general differences between the two. And kind of differences in how I view entertainment in different languages, and so I wanted to talk about it. Mostly the emphasis will be on why I decided to buy manga in Spanish. Spanish in this case means broadly all versions of Spanish, so I will eventually buy manga from Spain. Maybe I'll import some from Argentina and Colombia, but generally, I am going to mostly be buying Mexican manga from Panini Manga Mexico. So, because that's the easiest to access for me, but I mean, it's also the cheapest. So, yeah. Now, generally, I think I need to talk about languages in my life and languages in my view of entertainment. So, I am Mexican. I grew up here in the U.S., but I am from Mexico. I was born there and I moved here when I was a year old. And so my life has mostly been English and Spanish at the same time. Now, my mastery of languages, those two specifically, but broadly, my mastery of language is mostly in English. I am the best at English because it is the language I have learned most of my life in. Like everywhere I went to school was in English. I mean, I did have bilingual school up until 5th grade when Texas was like, nah, you can't have bilingual school anymore. So I had to do everything in English. But I mean, I basically stuck in Spanish at like a 5th grader level, right? And all of my entertainment that I consume by myself is in English. My life is all in English because I live in the U.S., right? And so my mastery of English language is significantly much higher than any other language that I am knowledgeable in. So, to me, entertainment is most easily accessed in English, right? And it also has to do with the fact that English generally has these kind of ideas about minimizing minimizing the difficulty and maximizing the likelihood of people understanding something in English, right? So, and I think this has to do with the fact that it's like the big language of big business, but my favorite form of entertainment is reading, right? And so I read everything. I read in every language that I can, but most specifically, I read in English. I watch TV in English. I do everything in English. Reading, my biggest hobby, reading is easy as hell in English. There's no major difficulty in English as long as you're like a native speaker. And the fact that English is so simplified when it comes to writing, like, yes, there's people that write very flowery, and yes, academia and writing in academia is very difficult, but it's only because like you have to use a lot of jargon. But general ideas, general like writing, like fiction novels, are super easy to understand. You don't actually have to have a high level of vocabulary or anything. You can easily discern stuff from context and stuff like that. And reading isn't seen as like this high class activity, right? It's a very general idea. I like that a lot. This is not my experience with every other language that I know. So for context, I know English and Spanish, basically native level for both of them, but at different levels of nativeness. English is by far the language I'm best at. Spanish is pretty good. I'm at like 5th grade level, since that's the last time I actually learned English properly, or learned Spanish properly. But I mean, I can still read, write, and talk in Spanish, no problem. Can make myself understood in every version of Spanish. It's not a problem. However, my fluidity at reading is pretty low, but I'll come back to that. The other languages that I know, more or less, are Turkish, because I went to this school that was like a charter school that had Turkish people in it, and they were like, oh, well, we just teach Turkish since we already have a bunch of Turkish teachers around. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll take Turkish because I already know Spanish. There's no point in learning it because it's just going to be an easy A. There's no going to be effort on my part. So I took Turkish. I went to Turkey like 4 times. Actually, I went to Turkey 3 times. And I did these like language exchange programs. And so I was able to talk in Turkish at like a second grader level, and I haven't practiced Turkish in about 7 years, but I can still kind of generally understand the general idea of a lot of Turkish conversations. So I mean, I'm okay with that. But I do want to get back to learning Turkish properly. But I mean, I never have time, so what the fuck. And then the last language I have some kind of understanding of is French. I learned French for a year in university, like 2 semesters. And French isn't really a big language that I'm knowledgeable in. Pronunciation is ass. Je ne peux parler français car les prononciations sont très difficiles. Okay, it's very difficult. Okay? I feel like I'm choking, mostly because I don't know how to make the gr sounds that the French are very known for. But I can easily read French, like very generally, because there's so many words that are very similar to Spanish, and because I know English, I can also kind of piece together some of the English words, and so I don't have a difficulty reading it. But it's not enjoyable to read it because I'm like, oh shit, this hurts my head. I know what this is trying to tell me, but I can't fucking tell you how it's telling me it. Yeah, languages are very interesting, and I really enjoy them. But yeah, entertainment. So, reading in English is easy as hell. Reading in Spanish is significantly more difficult for a few reasons. One, I am not as fluid at reading in Spanish as I am in English. A lot of stuff kind of like stumps me because I don't have the vocabulary necessary for a lot of writing, right? Because I think it was Kenna and this other guy that are like polyglot dudes that do videos on YouTube that were talking about how when you speak, you only access like a very small amount of words, right? But when you read, you're accessing way more because reading takes kind of this opportunity, or writing takes this opportunity to use a lot more of your vocabulary, since you're conveying ideas in a more complex way. Since you don't have to bother with making it easily understood when you're talking, right? So Spanish takes this to a whole nother level because literature in Spanish, and generally reading and writing in Spanish, is like a very high-class idea, a very high-class activity. And because Latin Americans and Hispanic people in general are very classist, it makes it difficult to enjoy reading stuff like that, because it's not done in like the same way in English, at least from my experience. Maybe this is not necessarily true for everyone, and people that are native to Spanish might not agree with me, but like, I grew up in the U.S. My perspective is somewhat of an outsider's, even though I am culturally part of Latin America. And so to me, reading in Spanish is very difficult. It feels very pretentious. It's very like complex when it doesn't need to be. And so I generally don't read in Spanish very often. However, manga shouldn't really have that issue, because manga is very lowbrow entertainment in terms of like difficulty, and in terms of like complexity of language. It shouldn't be very difficult. So that's why I decided to buy manga in Spanish. One, to raise my fluidity of reading, my ability to enjoy entertainment in a different language. One that I'm familiar with, but one that I'm not as good at as English. And because it's super cheap. Like manga in Spanish, or manga in Mexico, is like $5 a piece. That's ridiculously low, especially when it's like still $5 a piece, even though it's like collector's editions. That's super badass, super awesome. And of course, this is not actually the case for Latin Americans. Like, Mexican people feel that manga is expensive just the same way we Americans feel manga is expensive here. But because I live in the US and I think in dollars, Mexican peso prices are very low in comparison. Like, to a Mexican person, 150 pesos for a manga seems like a large amount, a very expensive amount. But to me, 150 pesos is like $7.50. That is a steal for a collector's edition, right? So I think there's a lot of interesting cultural and like linguistic dynamics going on here in my personal cultural experience, and that is affecting how I look at things and why I want to read manga in Spanish. So I'm rambling again, but this is what the point is. And what's it called? I looked at it from a few different perspectives. From the perspective of enjoyment, from the perspective of availability, and from the perspective of price, right? So price-wise, it's ridiculously cheap. The most expensive manga that I've seen in Mexico is this copy of City Hunter, which is like 250 pesos, which is $12.50, depending on how you translate it. Like if you use $20 or 20 pesos for $1, it's about $12.50. If you use 19, it's like 13, which is not very expensive at all. That's like a basic Kodansha volume. That's not expensive at all. That is very affordable for me. I think that's great, especially since they're new and they actually have a lot more stuff with them than American volumes. American volumes are just a book, but Mexican volumes, most of the modern ones at least, have a slipcase, or like not a slipcase, a slip cover, like an outside cover, like a hardcover book. They also have a bookmark that comes with the series, and sometimes they have other little gifts. And because it has a slip cover, it also has extra artwork that you might not see if you buy an American volume, right? So there you go. It's more bang for your buck. And although technically the volumes are definitely smaller, I really actually enjoy the small size for manga, so it doesn't really bother me. So price-wise, it's great. In terms of usefulness to me, in terms of enjoyability, manga, since it's so lowbrow entertainment and it's based around being accessible to children and teenagers and young adults, I don't think that there's going to be any issues with the linguistical aspects of it. I'm not going to have any issues with the literature side of things, like the fact that it feels very like highbrow and very kind of like complex / pretentious, because that's not the point of manga. So I think that it's going to be a very easy to read experience, and hopefully reading in Spanish more often via manga is going to help me gain some reading fluidity, reading practice in Spanish, which is something I sorely miss. Even though I have the Spanish edition of a few different books I enjoy, I always feel so tired after reading them, because I read really slow in Spanish, and because of that kind of pretentious, like highbrow version of the book it happens because it's in Spanish. And then the last thing is that there's a bunch of stuff in Spanish that is not even near being available in English. They have a bunch of stuff from different authors that we haven't even heard of here in the US. They have Greenblood and Bestiarius by this guy. I am going to put his name here because I don't remember it. Who has really awesome artwork. They also have Yagan, and if you look at Spain, they also have Grashross, which is a kind of Stone Age kind of shonen about this kid that lives in a village of like Neanderthal type of guys, and they're fighting mammoths, which is really awesome. They also have things like Go Death, which is a 3-volume series by this guy that did Ikutosen, which is a series I've never heard of, but who has very interesting, very kind of like buxom art. Kind of reminds me of High School of the Dead in terms of like art and plot lines. And then Saint Seiya and City Hunter and very cool special editions of Yu Yu Hakusho, Shaman King, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Yu-Gi-Oh! Edition of Panini Mexico is actually really badass. And they have a few other things that are just not available here. So I thought it was really cool. I get to check out manga without having to read scans, like manga that is not available here in the US. I get to practice my language acquisition, and I get to spend less money for more stuff. So, I mean, I literally see no negatives to this. So hopefully, I actually enjoy reading manga in Spanish, because it would suck if I did not. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you guys read manga in your native language, if you speak a different language, or if you read manga in any other language besides English, and if you ever want to collect manga in a different language, right? There's some really cool editions for a lot of stuff in a lot of different countries. The Mexican edition of Banana Fish is pretty cool because it's big and it's a 2-in-1, and it's kind of like special. It has a lot of fancy artwork. The Yu-Gi-Oh! One is cool as hell. And then Germany has a lot of very awesome collections and special editions France has Sunken Rock in physical format, which is awesome. Spain also has a lot of cool Boichi manga that we don't have available at all, like Wallman, Hotel, and I think they have another one that I can't remember, but very cool stuff. Overall, the wider world of manga beyond Japan and America is very interesting, very complex, and has a lot of stuff that I'm really excited to try to check out. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what you thought. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it, and see you guys later.